point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 418th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the astonishing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh, who is not really in the flesh for me because I'm in the flesh for me and I'm at my place. He's at his place.
I'm at my place.
Okay, Energy Week is a show that is put on every week at Brattleboro Community Television. And we record it on Thursdays, and we give the week's news from the previous 7 days. So we're starting on Thursday, May 6th, and we're running up to Wednesday, May 12th for the news that we're giving. This is news on energy and climate change. It is from my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. And if you want to take a look at what I call the script that we use, the places where you can see this show have places where you can either download that or look at it online. So,
well, this is the best of the blog.
Yes, it is.
And some of these items are well worth reading. I'll try and call that to your attention because some of these, I really think you want to read them.
Oh, yeah. If you're interested enough to watch this show, you're interested enough probably to see these things. To
see some of them anyhow. Some of them I'd almost say are mandatory.
Yep. Okay, so should we start, Tom?
Well, we're going to start off with a nice little picture of wind turbines.
Yeah, how amazing. Wind turbines. There's a farm there. I see farmhouses in the distance.
Yeah, there's something off in the right there that I can't quite figure out what it is.
It looks like it might be some kind of grain storage system, or it might be even a biodigester, big tanks of some kind. Okay, this particular item is from World Oil. And what do you have for a title for this?
The U.S. is already the world's most attractive renewables investment market. That's interesting.
Yep. As the Biden administration aims to increase federal investment in renewable energy under the American Jobs Plan, the U.S. already ranks as the most attractive market for renewables investment, according to a new ranking by IHS Markit, which is
it's a global renewable markets attractiveness rankings list.
Wow, you had that memorized, didn't you, Tom?
No, but I can read it.
Aha. Well, I didn't have it right in front of me.
Well, a couple of quick takeaways here.
Yeah.
The investment opportunities in renewables is significant.
Oh, yeah. I think
wind and PV alone will account for over 80% of all new power generation capacity additions globally up till 2030.
Yeah. If you want to think about this, and investment and things like that. Now, neither Tom nor I is an investment advisor.
Well, you got to have money to invest.
Yeah, I suppose you do. I could invest. I've got 50 cents. Basically, the position that we're in is that due to climate change, we have to change our entire energy structure. So we have to get rid of most of the power plants that give us power. Anything that involves coal or oil or gas or nuclear, probably nuclear, those things have all got to be replaced by things that don't produce carbon emissions. And the same thing is true for cars and trucks and airplanes.
Absolutely.
Same thing is true for heating systems and how the amount of infrastructure that's going to have to be replaced in the next 30 years is
it's a sea change.
It is. And the thing is, it's the biggest investment opportunity, I think, that has ever happened in human history. There are going to be people who make a lot of money with this, and there are going to be some people, and I don't think it's going to be all that many, and we will see why as we go through this show. There's going to be...
The U.S. is first. Germany is second. Mainland China, France, and Spain in that order.
Yeah.
And the UK ranks as the most attractive market for offshore wind investment.
Oh man,
And they're doing a lot over there. They really are.
They sure are. It's kind of astonishing. Okay, we should probably go on to our next item here, Tom.
Yeah, we got a nice picture of a whole bunch of batteries.
That's batteries. You know what that looks like as a self-storage site.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, it would be the same thing. They're basically shipping containers.
They're basically shipping containers. Absolutely. Okay, this particular item comes from Environment and Energy Leader.
California's grid reliability enhanced with 2 battery energy storage projects.
Now, I got to tell
not just for California.
I got to tell you, though, they have more than these 2. It's just these 2 are the ones the article is about. 2 new battery energy storage projects are coming to enhance California's grid reliability. Southern Power awarded Mitsubishi Power Americas and Powin an order for 2 battery energy storage system projects totaling 640 megawatt hours.
Well, that's significant.
It sure is. This is a lot of electricity, and if you think about this, 640 megawatt hours, what they're storing is the amount of electricity that the old Vermont nuclear plant would have produced in 1 hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a lot of electricity. And when you consider that there are going to be things online that are producing electricity, it's going to be solar or wind or, whatever. That 640 megawatt hours is just there to kind of balance the load as the load changes. So we're moving into a new paradigm.
The world is changing. I mean, the old model is gone.
Yes, it is.
Well, these facilities are going to come right online this year.
Yes, they are. And, this is just one group of these things. There's more.
Well, they're designed for a 20-year life cycle. We're using 4 hours of energy storage duration.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item. Should we go on now?
Yeah, we might as well got a nice picture here. I'm not quite sure what it is.
That is trees burning in the Amazon. This is a forest fire, probably intentional. In the Amazon rainforest.
Probably intentional because that's what's happening down there and it's a shame.
It is indeed, and you can see that it's a mess. There's smoke coming up. This is from CNN.
Aldi and other big grocers threatened to boycott Brazil over deforestation in the Amazon. Good for them.
Yes, I guess. Some of Europe's biggest supermarkets and food companies threatened to stop buying agricultural products from Brazil if a bill that would legalize the private occupation of public land that has taken place since 2012 becomes a law. So what's happened here is that people who don't own the land are moving on to land that belongs to the country. It's the whole country's land. And there's a bill that kind of says retroactively, that's okay. You're allowed to, you may not have been allowed to do it at the time, but you're allowed to keep it now that you've stolen it.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Crime pays, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, sometimes it does. And
there's a nice 2.5-minute video, by the way, attached to this.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Well, let's see what it says. The Amazon, this is important, is a giant carbon sink.
Yes.
And that carbon is released into the atmosphere when it is logged or burned.
Yes.
Destruction of the Amazon has surged under Brazilian President Bolsonaro, who has slashed funding to government-run environmental protection and monitoring programs.
Yes.
This guy Bolsonaro is kind of tough.
Well,
pushed to open indigenous lands to commercial farming and mining.
Yeah, he wants to take the lands that belong to the native people away from them and give them to rich people to use for purposes of their own. And,
that's the way things work, isn't it?
Well, sometimes it is. But here we've got a group of people who are saying, companies in the UK and in Europe, who are saying, if you're going to continue doing this, we're not going to do business with you anymore. And so there is a financial downside to this. We should move on, Tom.
I think we should.
Friday, May 7th. Huh?
We got a nice picture here of an aeroplane.
That is a very interesting plane, isn't it?
We've talked about this one before.
This particular one?
Yeah, we've had a picture up of it.
Well, we have a picture of it now, but
we've talked about it in the past.
Have we?
Yeah, this exact plane.
Really, I had forgotten. This thing has, if you look at the wings, you see that there are kind of pods under the wings that have a propeller pointing upwards.
Well, there's 12 upwardly pointing motors, really.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what brings it up and down.
That's right. And the propeller that drives it forward through the air is on the back of the
pusher propeller, right?
The pusher propeller behind the cockpit. So this is from Clean Technica. What do you got?
Whisk, Aero, and Blade Urban Air Mobility join forces to make electric air taxis a reality.
Yeah. In a further step toward making electric air taxis reality, EVTOL, that is Electric Vertical Takeoff and Land, startup Whisk Aero, which was backed by both Boeing and Kitty Hawk, formed a partnership with Blade Urban Air Mobility to send a fleet of 30 EVTOLs up into the air. So they're building 30 of these things.
It's a little bit confusing, but I did some research.
Oh, okay.
The plane is made by Kitty Hawk.
Yep.
And it's called a Cora.
Cora, okay.
And Whisk is a consortium with Boeing and Kitty Hawk.
Okay.
Okay, and they're going to be manufacturing these planes.
Yeah.
And the vehicles are going to be maintained by Whisk and run on Blade's existing network of air terminals. So that's what Blade does. They run air taxis.
Okay. Well, I don't think any of these is going to land at the helicopter landing site at the Brattleboro hospital.
Hospital? They could.
They may be able to. It makes sense that they would be able to. Yeah, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't. But it's going to be a little while. I mean, even if this is a very successful design, it's going to be a while before it becomes really widely available.
Well, there's other people working on similar things.
There sure are. Okay, we've got to move on to the next one, which comes from the Middlebury campus. And I
know those guys. They're working outside my house right now.
Are they really? Wow. What do you have for a title for this, Tom?
Well, that's Vermont Electric Co-op, and it says Vermont Electric plans for carbon neutrality by 2023, 100% renewable energy by 2030. Yeah,
Vermont Electric Cooperative plans to reach carbon neutrality by 2023 and transition fully to renewable energy sources by 2030, it announced last month. Member enthusiasm and state climate goals are cited as the reasons for the change. And, we should explain something here, which is you can be carbon neutral without giving up the things that you do that give off carbon emissions. If you
buy offsets.
You can buy offsets. You can plant trees and say, look, I'm planting trees. I'm allowed to burn a certain amount of gasoline because I'm planting trees.
Well, that's an offset.
It's an offset. You can buy them. You can do them. But they're planning on being carbon neutral by 2023. A lot of places could be carbon neutral today if they just bought the offsets.
They could.
And then these guys are taking that further, and they're saying we are actually going to be not producing carbon emissions by 2030. So they're saying
we're about the Vermont Electric Co-op. It's the state's largest consumer-owned electrical utility.
Okay.
And it's essentially everything north of Burlington.
Yeah, it's this is a co-op as opposed to something that is not consumer owned, and of course
it's consumer owned, and basically it's a nonprofit.
Yes, as opposed to Green Mountain Power, which is which is in
business to make money.
That's right.
There's nothing wrong with that as long as they don't screw people doing it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you.
Well, currently, about 75% of Vermont Electric Co-op's power is produced carbon-free.
Okay.
And they're going to phase out that remaining quarter in the next 2 years using wind power from New York, which they'll be buying, and hydropower from the Connecticut River. Okay. And I didn't realize this. I had to look it up, but there's 6 dams on the Connecticut River.
Yeah.
Which produce nearly 500 megawatts.
I didn't realize it was that much. I knew that there were a bunch of dams.
There's 3 big ones up by St. Jay.
Okay.
And then there's the Wilder, which is by White River Junction. And then there's Bellows Falls, which I've actually been to.
Yeah, I have too.
And then there's the Vernon one, which you drive right by. That's a little one. That's only 25 megawatts.
It's not big. Yeah. The one in Bellows Falls is interesting because you can go in and look at the I almost hesitate to call it a fish ladder, but it's a place where the fish can get through. You almost don't
see it that it's there.
Well, you do if you get up close to those things. I looked at them and I thought, how in the world can any fish get through that? Because the water is just rushing through. But they do it. So let's
move along again. We got we got some funny looking machines here.
Yeah, and one of them is, how does that thing turn, the one that's up close, the tallest one, without hitting the moon?
Never thought of that.
You see, I'm not stupid. Okay, this is from
look, this is a good picture because you can't really tell how big these things really are. But on the latest iteration of these turbines, those blades are a football field long.
Yes.
And the pylon there they're sitting on has got to be longer than that, or else they'll crash into the ground.
Yeah, those masts are probably 500 feet at least.
Easily. Absolutely.
And these things are gigantic. And this particular article is from the Budapest Business Journal. What do you got for a title?
China leads in renewable energy capacity at 895 gigawatts.
895 gigawatts.
Well, gigawatts is bigawatts, baby.
Man, that is amazing. The world's total installed renewable energy amounted to 2,800 gigawatts in 2020. China has an installed renewable energy capacity of 895 gigawatts. But the Warsaw Business Journal reports, citing data from tradingplatforms.com. The next on the list is the United States with a distant 292 gigawatts. So China has just about 3 times the amount of renewable energy.
Yeah, it's about 3 times. Yep.
And I don't have this in this particular show, but it is something that did appear in the news this week, and it should be mentioned at this time. The emissions coming from China are equal to or greater than the emissions of all other developed nations put together.
Wow.
And,
that's scary.
It is, but just look at this. They've got 3 times as much renewable energy as the United States. This is, and the reason is because they've got this hot economy that is just growing at breakneck speed. And it's, there it is.
A couple of quick takeaways from the article.
Yeah.
During the years 2015 into 2020, the total global renewable energy capacity grew at a compound annual growth rate of nearly 9%. Now, that's compound rate. That's growing.
Yeah.
Wind energy has grown almost 18% year on year, and solar has beat that by growing nearly 22% year on year.
Yeah. 2020 was an incredibly good year for renewable energy. And apparently, according to the International Energy Agency, 2021 is going to be better and 2022 is going to be better. They're expecting over 90% of all the new capacity going in the next 2 years to be renewable. We are, as you said just earlier, we are in a sea change.
Absolutely.
Okay, we should move on.
Yeah, we got a nice picture of the OIF.
The OIF. This is an amazing picture. Just look at how clear a lot of the detail on there is.
This is a good picture. Yeah,
it's a really good picture. You've got, I can see Iberia. It's Portugal, Spain.
Saudi Arabia is right in the middle of it.
Oh, Saudi Arabia. I think the Saudis probably paid for this picture to make Saudi Arabia the middle of the world. How about that? Well,
how about that, huh?
Maybe I'm wrong. This is from the Middlebury campus. Oh, I'm sorry. This is from, no, I'm in the wrong part of this whole thing. This is from Nature.
From Nature.
Yes. What do you have?
reboots its role in fighting climate change. This is an interesting article.
Yeah, NASA is the best known for exploring other worlds, whether that's sending astronauts to the moon or flying helicopters on Mars. But under U.S. President Joe Biden, the agency intends to boost its reputation as a major player in studying the Earth, especially to fight climate change. Donald Trump directed NASA not to study the Earth.
Yeah, he did. He did a lot of great things.
Yeah, well, didn't he? And so this is NASA getting back into business.
Well, NASA started out this way. They've been observing the Earth stretching back to 1960.
Yes.
When it began monitoring weather from space.
An important scientific breakthrough, really. I mean, all of a sudden,
absolutely,
weather predictions started becoming accurate. What a weird idea.
And they're funding fundamental climate research such as ice sheet melting and sea level rise, carbon dioxide flowing through the atmosphere, freshwater resources, and ocean currents. So they're getting pretty busy.
They are pretty busy. Okay, we should probably move on.
Well, we got a nice picture of an offshore wind farm.
Yeah, complete with a substation, and this is from G Captain.
G-Captain, but of course, how an oil company becomes a renewables company.
Well, here we are talking about, the oil companies going into renewable energy.
And they are, or at least some of them are.
Some of them are. Norway's state-owned oil producer, Equinor ASA, posted a $2.6 billion of earnings in the first quarter of 2021, 49% of which came from renewable energy. So they're really changing fast. Last quarter, Equinor earned more from renewables than it did from oil and gas exploration and production. So this is, we're seeing a sea shift not only in energy in general, but the companies that are doing the oil, a lot of them are changing. Now, they
got a little bit of some comments on that.
Okay.
Other majors have increased their energy transmission commitments. BP is buying into Equinor's U.S. projects.
Yes.
Italy's Eni is buying into the U.K. projects.
Right.
The Spanish firm Repsol, never heard of them, devoted 40% of its capital expenditure to low-carbon projects.
Yes.
And France's Total stated plans to increase its renewable energy capacity 5-fold over the next 4 years.
Yes.
So these guys aren't playing games. I think they're starting to realize what's going on.
They are not playing games. I want to point out that none of the companies you just named is American.
That's correct.
And it's sad because, what is ExxonMobil going to do? What is Chevron going to do? They've got to get really in deeper into renewable energy.
Well, they're heavily committed to previous investments.
Yeah, they are. That's true. That is true. Should we move on?
Yeah, we got another picture coming up with those funny looking things in it again.
This picture is so bizarre looking.
Isn't it?
Those things are sand dunes, I think, aren't they, Tom?
I think they are. They're not. I thought they were waves, but they can't be.
They can't be waves.
Sand dunes.
They cannot be waves. But this is just bizarre looking. This looks like it is on a different planet. And this article, by the way, came from Clean Technica. What do you got for a title?
Well, that happens to be a wind farm in South Australia.
Okay.
And the title of the article says Tesla's director of energy on transition to renewables. And this is a quote. It's happening quickly.
Yeah. Mark Tidal, director of energy at Tesla, was recently in Adelaide, South Australia, where he spoke at the South Start Entrepreneurs Conference, Financial Review reported. In his talk, he emphasized just how fast renewables transition is happening. And of course, Adelaide, South Australia is almost exactly the right place to talk about this, because Adelaide is only about 150 kilometers from the I've forgotten the name of that. That it's a wind farm plus battery storage. That the one that Elon Musk made a bet that he could put it in 100 years.
Yes, and he won that bet.
Yeah. And,
the article says around 40 industrial scale storage batteries are in the planning stage around Australia.
Yeah.
Australia is getting pretty active in this.
It is. And, it's a funny thing, Tom, because Australia has got state governments that are way far ahead of other countries, and its federal government just is stuck on natural gas and coal, but natural gas.
What you say is true. We've talked about it.
Yeah, we have indeed, and it's just bizarre because the people in the federal government who are stuck on natural gas are in the political party they call the Liberals, which is the equivalent of American conservatives, and the Liberals are the political party in charge of that's currently running South Australia. They're in the same political party, but they just can't agree on the importance of renewable energy. And the government of South Australia is just really going for it because it saves so much money. And
absolutely,
in
Australia, it's got a long ways to go to be an industrial giant.
Giant. Well, it's a big country.
It's a big country. It can do it, but
it doesn't have a big population.
It's got a small, and they're all located within about 100 miles of the shore.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it was I said there was around 40 industrial scale storage batteries. This guy, Tidal, was talking about the electrical vehicle industry's demand for lithium.
Yes.
And that renewables competitiveness over coal is accelerating.
Yes.
They're already a threat to liquid natural gas projects in some countries, where it serves as a transition fuel from coal.
Right. Okay. Our next item is from Clean Technica. Also, is that right? Yes, it is.
It is from Clean Technica, and that is, if anybody remembers, a trolley car.
Well, it's not something you have to remember. You can actually go there and see them running. Yeah, they do. And as a matter of fact,
still have them in New Orleans too.
In New Orleans, really? Well, I remember when I was a little kid in grade school, we had a story that came up, and I don't remember how, but the teacher was talking about it. These trolleys, the government of San Francisco had tried to replace them all with buses, and they found that the buses just couldn't do what the trolleys do. And, the trolleys, these trolleys, by the way, don't have motors on them at all. They operate by grabbing a hold of a cable that's running in a you can kind of see the slots in the ground there.
Yes, right in the middle. Yeah. So these, I didn't realize that these are not they're not electric, huh?
These are true cable cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, or at least that's what I've read. I
believe it because I can see the channel in the middle where.
Right, and they can negotiate very, very, very steep hills like they have in San Francisco, and the buses just don't really.
The buses can't work. Keep up.
Yeah, the buses can't do it. Okay, what do you have for a title on this?
California Energy Commission proposal makes important climate progress, but falls short of widely supported all-electric building code.
Yeah, the Electric Energy Commission, the California Energy Commission, released its official proposal for the 2022 California Energy Code, which, if it's finalized, will help advance the state toward pollution-free homes and buildings. So this article is about pollution-free homes and buildings, and really doesn't have anything to do with cable cars. But what they're trying to do is to get their homes and buildings so that they don't produce pollution or cause pollution. They want them to be powered by electricity, and they want them to be powered efficiently by electricity. So they're using the most efficient use of energy possible.
Well, they don't go far enough, really, according to the article.
That's right. They don't.
The proposal will reduce, but not fully eliminate fossil fuel pollution from new buildings.
Right.
The draft does not require all electric buildings, but it will require at least one major heating appliance to be all electric in all new residential and most new commercial buildings. So
Right.
it's a step in the right direction, but it's a baby step.
It could be. Okay, our next item is also from Clean Technica, and we have a picture of a solar array.
We certainly do.
And what do you have for title for this?
99.7% of new U.S. power capacity was solar and wind in January and February.
This is, as you said earlier, this is a sea change. The new U.S. power capacity in the first 2 months of 2021 came almost exclusively from wind and solar plants. Data from the U.S. Federal Energy Commission shows wind and solar provided 99.7% of the new large-scale power capacity.
And they're not counting rooftop.
They're not counting rooftop. That is correct. And if it were rooftop, it might be a little bit more, but it would not be a lot more. But
well, basically, rooftop is a commercial. I mean, that's what they're talking about is commercial.
Yeah, about 40% of the solar power that's installed in this country is too small for the FERC, as they call it, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, to count. So they miss a lot of solar power from the count. If you see that solar power is 4% of the capacity in the United States, what that really means is that it's almost 6%. It's kind of deceptive. But anyway, there it is. Should we move on?
Yeah, I lost my place here.
You lost your place. We're at Alaska Native News, and that little wind farm there is on Kodiak Island.
Wait a second, something's missing here.
Something's missing?
Yeah, did we do? I guess we just didn't finish 99.7% of U.S. power.
No, I think we did finish it. But
well, I got some notes here that
I'll go back. Go tell us what your notes say.
Well, solar and wind power are simply the cheapest options for new electricity.
Yes, and you know what? It happens that batteries are cheaper than natural gas peaking plants, and now it's natural gas load following plants as well, which means that wind and solar and batteries have just there's not a lot of reason left to have fossil fuel power plants.
It's the economics, stupid.
That's right. Okay, I want to get back to Kodiak and Alaska Native News.
That's a nice picture.
It's an interesting picture. It almost looks like some kind of weird abstract painting.
Yeah, it does.
So what do you got for a title? This go ahead.
That's a wind farm on Kodiak Island.
Sure is. Title for the article.
Legislature votes to reduce government regulations of renewable energy.
Yeah, and this was, the thing that was interesting about this was the actual numbers of the vote. The Alaska legislature passed Senate Bill 69, encouraging private investment in renewable energy projects by extending an exemption from its duplicative regulations and independent power producers. The bill passed the Senate 18-0, and it passed the House 36-1. So this is obviously a bill that everybody was supporting. And why are they supporting it? Well, you said just about 2 minutes ago, it's the money, stupid.
Extending this exemption will encourage more private investment in renewable energy projects across Alaska.
Yeah, and that in turn will mean that people in Alaska, a lot of people in Alaska, will have more money to spend on other things.
Well, as of this reading, it is not law yet. The governor hasn't signed on to it.
Yeah, but the government...
He will. With numbers like that, he will.
Yeah, if he vetoes this, he's got to have a good reason, and then it'll go back to the legislature, and they will pass it. They'll override the veto. Okay, we're up to Monday, May 10th, and we have a picture of
a solar array.
A solar array, and this is an item from Construction Kenya.
inside Kenya's small-scale renewable energy revolution.
Yeah, demand for solar energy in Kenya has risen over the past few years as ratepayers turn it to beat high. Turn to it. Thank you very much, Tom. To beat the high cost of electricity. Kenya Power said industrial customers accounting for nearly 55% of sales revenues have begun generating their own electricity for solar power. Kenya Power, that's the kind of thing that would bankrupt a company. If you've lost 55% of your customers, that's not. This is.
Well, Kenya doesn't. There's not a lot of electricity in Kenya.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people who live in the outback who barely even know what electricity is.
Well, we've seen a picture. I don't know if it came from Kenya or not, but it was a straw house.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Cells on the roof.
That was Uganda, I think. And I actually had a friend at one point who was a woman who had literally, as a little girl, had grown up in Kenya in a grass shack with a dirt floor. That's where she lived, and she was French, as a matter of fact. Her father was a man who did research on locusts in that part of the world. And when she was Belgian, but she spoke French. And
they mentioned in the article that Kenya has ample sunshine year round.
Yeah, I would bet it does.
It's a sunny place.
Sunny place. Okay, our next item in the agenda here is from
picture here of mountains that could be in Vermont.
It could be. That looks more like the mountains farther south to me, but you're right. It could be in Vermont. This is from New American Journal.
Biden administration outlines the America the Beautiful initiative.
Yeah. In a clean break from the anti-nature politics and policies of the previous administration, the new Biden-Harris administration has begun to outline a different vision for how the U.S. can work collaboratively to conserve and restore public lands, waters, and wildlife.
This is a good one to look up and read. There's a lot about it. It's a long article, but there's a lot of meat in it.
Yeah.
And it focuses on 3 problems that are threatening lands, waters, and wildlife. And I'll list them. The disappearance of nature, climate change, and inequitable access to the outdoors by low-income communities.
Yes. And
you don't think about this, but...
I did an article for Green Energy Times a couple of years ago about a group of environmentalists in central New York, and one of the things that they were saying was they had principles for saving the environment, and they regarded it as very important that people hunt, and the reason for that is because the human beings have removed predators from the wild. We don't have wolves around here.
That's correct. Yeah, I've read that. I've read articles on exactly that subject.
Yeah, and so in order to maintain a balance of nature, somebody's got to go out and cull the animals, which is why they want to hunt deer particularly, because deer can be extremely destructive to the environment if they get out of hand. And I talked to a guy from New Zealand. He was part of the New Zealand government. And he said, basically in New Zealand, the deer are so destructive that if you want to hunt deer, you don't have to pay anything for the hunting license. At least this was 40 years ago. You didn't have to pay for the hunting license. There was no season. You could just go out and hunt.
They want to encourage it.
They had such terrible problems. The deer were causing serious erosion problems. And deer are not native to New Zealand. There's no...
And they can be pretty destructive.
Oh, they're just unbelievable. They're so destructive. I don't like personally the idea of going out and hunting deer. It's not something that I find terribly attractive. But at the same time, we've got to maintain balance in the... If we're going to do the heavy duty moving of nature that we've been doing for the last couple hundred years, we've got to act like stewards. And so,
they could do a heck of a job on your vegetable garden.
Oh man, I've seen that. Woodchucks do too. I had beans one year. Woodchucks went through and they stripped every leaf from every bean plant, but they left the beans.
Selectively, huh?
They left the beans behind. Okay, we should go on. Our next item.
Well, this is very current right now.
This is what?
Very current.
Okay, I've just lost my place on my computer. Just a second.
The Colonial Pipeline.
It's the Colonial Pipeline, yes, and there are things to say about that. Here we go. Okay,
U.S. passes emergency waiver over fuel pipeline cyber attack.
Yeah, this is from the BBC. And by the way, the Secretary of Energy, now what is her name? Granholm. Jennifer Granholm, I've forgotten. I'm not good with names. She said the whole thing should be operating basically at full speed by the weekend, which is just,
Well, as of yesterday, the pipelines were still shut down.
They've started opening them up. I don't know if they're still shut down or if they've got minor movement in them. But let me read the synopsis here. The U.S. government issued emergency legislation after the largest fuel pipeline in the United States was completely shut down by ransomware cyber attack. The Colonial Pipeline carries 2.5 million barrels a day, 45% of the East Coast supply of diesel, gasoline, and jet fuel. And by the way, this pipeline begins in Texas and it ends in New Jersey. So it's
right by New York, by the New York border.
Does it? I thought this is Linden, New Jersey. I thought that was down near Philadelphia.
No, it's right across from Manhattan.
Oh, okay. Fine. All right.
I said the pipelines are still shut down as of yesterday.
Yeah.
The group is called the Dark Side. It's a cyber criminal gang.
Which apparently is in Russia.
It could be Russian because the software systems don't interfere where the language is in Russian.
I don't know.
U.S. fuel prices at the pump have risen 6 cents per gallon since shutdown. I just heard that yesterday as I was writing this.
And I don't know why the whole nation would have its costs at the pump go up. I don't know that they did in Vermont, to tell you the truth.
This pipeline doesn't really take fuel to Vermont. Vermont's fuel comes by ship up into Boston.
Okay. But where does the ship come from?
Oh, it comes from Houston. It comes from Texas.
So they come all the way by ship. Okay.
All the way by ship, yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's see. How are we doing for time? We should probably go to the next item, unless you have more for that.
Well, we got a nice picture there.
Okay, there's a nice picture. This is Hawaii.
I guess it is. It's a real... I've been in Hawaii, but I haven't seen Hawaii.
My parents lived in Hawaii before I was born, but they left because of very mean people.
He was in the Navy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. The very mean people were not native Hawaiians. They were not people who lived in Hawaii. They were the Japanese Navy.
I was just going to say it was the Japanese.
Yeah, Dad was on a destroyer mine layer, which was stationed in Pearl Harbor, and it was actually in Pearl Harbor when the bombing happened. He wasn't on it, but he was. You can bet on it within a couple of hours.
Well, let's read the article. Start reading the article.
Yeah.
The Big Island, on pace to meet renewable energy goals in 2 years.
2 years.
That's the Big Island of Hawaii.
Yeah. This is Honolulu Civil Beat. 3 large solar projects in the works for Hawaii on Hawaii Island. And for people who don't know, there's Hawaii, the state, but the biggest island in the state of Hawaii is also called the island of Hawaii.
Yeah, they call it the Big Island, too.
They call it the Big Island, are bolstering the island's renewable energy supply. They are big enough that the island should hit 100% of its renewable energy standards by 2023, Hawaii Electric Company says, and by 2024, it should be up to 110%.
Well,
So,
these solar projects also include storage, by the way.
yes, they do. And if you say 110%, how is that possible? Just remember, this is not a limit. 100% is not a limit. It is the amount that you of the energy that you use. So,
Well, if it's in Hawaii, they'll just pump it to another one of the islands or something like that.
they could
It's
use
not
it.
going to bring it over to California.
No, but they can increase their use of electric vehicles.
Or they can store it.
They can store it. Whatever is a reasonable thing to do.
It's not a problem.
It's not a problem. No, Paraguay has been running 1,000% hydropower for
Yeah, I read about that. I find
decades.
that very interesting.
Isn't that fun? And they make a lot of money producing 1,000%.
Absolutely.
And they've been doing it for decades and decades.
Oh, as far as I'm concerned, it's just one big mountain down there.
Paraguay?
Yeah.
I always think of Paraguay as kind of flat, but what can I say? All right.
Yeah.
Our next item is from the Globe and Mail, and we have a picture
Got those funny looking things again.
Yes. Okay, and what do you have for a title from the Globe and Mail article?
Renewable energy sources grew at the fastest rate in 2 decades.
Yeah, renewable sources of electricity, including wind and solar, grew at the fastest rate in 2 decades in 2020 and are set to expand even more rapidly in the next 2 years, with high-capacity renewables likely to account for about 90% of the new global capacity. Basically, what they're saying was, everybody suffered from COVID-19 except the renewable energy industry, which just moved ahead. And as it moved ahead, the prices went down. And as the prices went down, it moves ahead faster. So this is
an interesting statement. Renewables increased by 45%, okay, comprising about 28% of global electricity generation in the first quarter of 2020.
Yeah, that is remarkable.
A lot.
That's a lot. But it does mean that the United States is a little bit behind the 8 ball on this.
What's worldwide they're talking about?
They're at 28% worldwide. The United States is not getting 28% of its electricity from renewables. So everybody else is kind of ahead of us. Okay, our last item, is this our last item? No, it's not our last.
We've got a couple more items.
We do. I'm ahead of myself. This is from Clean Technica, and we have pictures of Porsches getting charged. Porsches, they're electric vehicles, and they're getting charged. What do you think of that?
I didn't even know Porsche was making an electric vehicle.
Well,
I know.
Everybody is starting to make electric vehicles. Yeah, they have to. Although that green car in the foreground looks like it's got a door for a gas tank right behind the front wheel.
It does, doesn't it? Yes.
Yeah, it does. Okay, you have a
sharp eye.
Well, I don't know. Basically, every once in a while, the eye falls on something. What do you have for a title for this?
Electric cars will be cheaper in Europe than conventional cars by 2027.
Yeah.
Cheaper than conventional.
That is the purchase price of the car. Now, the conventional cars already cost about 4 times as much to drive. So the electric cars have already been had a lifetime expense that was below the cost of the lifetime expense of the gas cars. Now they're getting to a point where it's cheaper to buy them. And that means
what they're saying, it's less expensive to manufacture.
Yeah, and that means that there is no reason whatever that I can imagine to have a gas-powered car. Okay, let me read the synopsis. Recently, Transport and Environment, which is the name of a publication, asked Bloomberg New Energy Finance to determine when EVs would become less expensive to manufacture than conventional cars with gasoline engines. The answer is that this would happen in 2027. But the lifetime cost of ownership for these cars has already, for a couple of years, fallen below that of gas-powered vehicles.
Well, I'm just going to mention something because it's a big key to this.
Yeah.
The largest factor in reducing production costs will be falling battery prices.
Falling battery prices, yes. And one of the things about the electric cars is that they are exquisitely simple compared to gasoline-powered cars. They're just
nothing breaks down.
Well, not only that, but I mean, if you want to build a car that has two motors, one on each rear tire, you've got a car that doesn't need a differential.
Yep.
And you've got a car that, if you build it to this specification, doesn't need a gear shift. You don't need a transmission. You don't need a gas tank, a fuel pump, all of that stuff. You just don't need it. But I don't know how many parts you're eliminating, but my bet is that you're eliminating something in excess of 80% of the parts in the car.
Well, we've all got electric motors somewhere in our lives, like dishwashers and stuff like that. When's the last time you heard of the motor failing?
Failing?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's been a fan failed for me.
A fan might, but the motor didn't fail.
No, it was the motor that failed. The bearing in the motor went. That was a couple of years ago.
That's rare.
I don't know if you buy stuff that's
electric motors just keep running.
Yeah, they do. If you buy stuff that's cheap enough, you get the results of you get cheap enough stuff. Yeah. Okay, we should move on. Our next item is we're at Wednesday, May 2nd. And we've got an item here from Renews, and that is a picture of a Tidal turbine installation.
Well, we've talked about this one before already.
We have indeed. This specific one we've talked about.
Well, that what you're seeing in front of you there is an island.
Yeah,
it used to be called Welfare Island. Now it's got a different name, but it used to be all government stuff, but now you can live there. It's a pretty nice place to live.
Is it Roosevelt?
That bridge is there for.
Is it Roosevelt Island?
Roosevelt Island. That's exactly right.
Okay.
And if you look in the background of that picture, you'll see a power plant with tall stacks.
I didn't notice that, Tom. Those are the same ones we've had on the show, I think, twice in the last 3 weeks.
Well, they're closing it. It's closed now. It's not working.
It's closed. That's right.
It was built for coal. It was modified to gas, and now it's closed.
It's closed, and they're replacing it with a battery.
Bingo.
What do you have for a title for the article?
EMEC, which we got to figure out who EMEC is.
Well, I don't know.
The world's first internationally recognized power performance assessment. The Verdant Power for its Roosevelt Island Tidal Energy Array in New York. And we've talked about this one already.
Yeah, this was a 39-day test. When these turbines were put in, they immediately wanted to know how well are they working. And Verdant
They're working
Power,
very well.
Yeah, Verdant Power's turbines had an availability of over 99%. There was some electricity coming out of these turbines over 99% of the time. It generated 187 kilowatts at peak flood tide velocity. And one of the first things to come to my mind was, okay, if they're generating 99% of the time, how many minutes of no electricity are there? And what do you suppose the curve looks like for their coming on and their going off as the tide is changing? And then what are the implications? Because we don't have the data in this article to tell us the answer to that.
They call this the East River, but it's not a river.
Yes, that's true. That's a good point. It is the East River.
And most of the river traffic goes on the other side of that island. So this place is relatively calm. They could stick a dozen of these things in there. They probably will.
And if you added a relatively small battery to this, I'm talking about a battery that would have to generate 187 kilowatts or 150 maybe, but it would not have to really output that much power for very long. So maybe it would be 150 kilowatts and.
Well, right on the other side of this picture where those chimneys are. There's a huge battery there now.
Right, but this will produce power 100% of the time with a small battery.
Pretty close to it.
That's the point that I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
And it has to be a battery that will give you as much power as this thing is going to deliver to the grid at any one time, but it only has to give you a few minutes of that power 4 times a day. So, it's
that's what happens. I mean, as I said, it's not a river.
Yeah.
And it changes with the tide, goes one way for 4 hours, goes the other way for 4 hours.
I've been up that on boat, and there's weird stuff in there. There's like ships that sank and stuff like that, just rusting away. Okay.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah. At the mouth of this, it might not have actually been in it.
Well, it can be, because they don't use this particular part for commerce.
Yeah. Our next item is from CNN. And sorry, Tom, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you have more to say about that?
Not really.
Okay. This is from CNN, and that picture is a picture of a highway in California, but I think that picture was probably taken during times that were not really intense drought times. So what do you have for a title?
Drought emergency declared in most of California amid acute water supply shortfalls.
California governor.
I'm looking at that picture here. Yeah, that's a California highway, and it's as straight as an arrow as far as you can see.
I know. It looks like it belongs in Illinois, doesn't it?
It's certainly, we got something like that in Vermont too, but it's only 6 feet long.
Okay. When I was a kid in Illinois, I lived in the area around Brattleboro. I lived in New Hampshire, but I lived here, and then I lived in Illinois. And in Illinois, it's like every road was straight, and every road except a few very weird ones went either north and south, straight as an arrow, or east and west, straight as an arrow. Okay. California Governor Gavin Newsom expanded a drought emergency across the parched state, covering a vast stretch of the central and northern regions of the state as it endures its second major drought in less than a decade. Their drought is an extreme drought. This is extreme drought. It is, it's just incredibly dry, and the landscape is really suffering. They've got to come up with a different way of dealing with water.
Well, about 98% of California is currently experiencing drought conditions.
Yeah. Tom, we should move on to our next item, because we've got about 3 minutes, and this is our last one.
We got a picture of a Boyd, huh?
I thought that was a friend of yours. Isn't that a friend of yours? That's a beautiful bird.
It is, isn't it? It's a parrot, huh?
Some kind of parrot is what it looks like. It's from New Zealand, though. And as I said, this is from BBC.
Throwing money at schemes is ineffective.
Yeah, a report from Third World Network says rich companies throwing money at enhancing biodiversity is ineffective. It calls for, quote, a profound reorganization of the global post-pandemic economy to prevent further harm to the planet, end quote. And it recommends nothing less than a, quote, change in our entire economic model, end quote. And I got to tell you something.
That's an interesting quote.
I believe that these guys are right. We have to have, personally, I think we should have a constitutional amendment that says we're going to do away with C Corps altogether and replace them with B Corps. And what that would mean is the companies would still be allowed to make money, but they would have to be much more transparent about their decisions, and they'd have to be able to justify things they're doing in terms of their changes to the environment and their effects on people.
There's some nice pictures in this article.
Yeah.
Of animals.
Yep.
There's a giraffe and I think it's a hippopotamus and rhinoceros.
I don't remember. I remember the giraffe.
Yeah, there's some nice pictures.
There are not. What
it's saying is, and they give an example of a project in Costa Rica. It was designed to incentivize tree planting. However, it subsidized commercial forestry, resulting in plantation forests of a single non-native tree species used in the production of wooden shipping pallets.
Well, this is kind of heartbreaking when you get right down to it.
It really is. It didn't do what was intended to do.
Yeah, this monoculture thing is not good. Okay, we're at the end of our time. Sorry to say.
We are. I think we are.
And I have a final slide, which is a message to our viewers to say that we believe that they should have a thoroughly delightful week, because that is what they deserve.
I hope they do.
And so Tom and I are waving goodbye, and we will hope.
The parrot is waving too.
What? The parrot is waving. Well, I said, he's your friend. Bye-bye, everybody.
Adios.